The move online was meant to make marketing more effective, more targeted, and more accountable. In reality, the opposite has happened. Digital marketing has lost its way, and both advertisers and consumers have lost faith with digital marketing. It's our responsibility to fix it. This is why Bango has brought together some of the best minds in marketing to discuss not just what's gone wrong, but how we build better campaigns, become more effective, and develop more ethical practices for the digital marketing industry. To find out more about how Bango is championing a new approach that better serves marketers and consumers, download the manifesto at bango.com/manifesto. Enjoy the event.
I suppose I'm going to start with the Bob Dylan quote, which is my favourite one from Brownsville Girl, which is, people don't do what they say they believe, they do what's convenient and then they repent. I think it's perfectly possible that almost everybody in this industry knows there's something wrong. But rather like weird cults and religions, I think certain things reach a level where either enough people believe them, or we believe that enough other people believe them, that life is just much, much easier and more convenient if we pretend we believe them ourselves. In other words, it's just too tiring to be a dissenter. And I think things like the shareholder value movement are equivalent to that. Really, really bad ideas which simply won't die. And to me, the whole thing has a whiff of kind of Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes about it, that in a sense, people believe it because they want it to be true. And they want to believe there's a world in which advertising is perfectible, attributable, quantifiable, measurable, and made 100% efficient. And I came up in the direct marketing world where, interestingly, there was one great thing about direct marketing. Now, because direct marketing didn't have a Google or a Facebook, it didn't have a Silicon Valley, it wasn't that cool, okay? We spend our time basically selling direct mail, telephone marketing, fax marketing, and addressable media on the basis that they were accountable and measurable. And therefore, you could test and learn. And that was and remains absolutely true, by the way. However, everybody listened to this, they accepted our arguments, and then they went and made TV commercials instead, because that was the fashionable thing to do, okay? And the thing we didn't notice, perhaps, was that there was a problem to being in direct marketing, which is that the advantage of direct marketing was it was testable, measurable, and attributable. The problem is that if you had a direct marketing budget, you were never allowed to do anything that wasn't. And I would argue that of all the effective marketing things you can do, and this is speaking as a direct marketer still, okay, there will only be a small percentage which can be conducted where you can directly attribute the value of an activity back to its source. In particular, if you're obsessed with attribution and the reliability of attribution, everything you do will be very short-termist, for the simple reason that the data on long-term activities just takes longer to appear and nobody can be bothered to wait. And in the interim, lots of other things have happened which then cloud the data, okay? So one of the problems in direct marketing was you could never actually say, if you said something like, let's send our best customers a Christmas card, to give a fatuous idea, it might have been a very, very good idea, a very good thing to do, but nobody would ever let you do it because it would take you 5 years to work out whether there was actually a return on this investment. Now, my contention is that large parts of brand value will always be at the level of pure probabilistic, if you are famous, it is better than if you're not. The value of fame will always manifest itself, for example, in things like if your chief executive rings someone up, they return the call, okay? Now, one, how do you actually attribute that to a particular piece of marketing activity? You can't. Secondly, how do you place a value on it? You can't. If you're a great brand, you can hire great people for less money and they'll stay with you longer, okay? How do you attribute a value to that? There are huge forms of value to brand building and brand advertising, which you can't dissect and actually effectively separate down, distill down into individual parts, okay? And the kind of urge to believe that you can has driven, I think, a kind of insanity. In that two very strange things have happened, I think. One of which is that because of this question of the obsession with attribution, marketing focus has become very short-termist. My argument is that the greatest form of marketing is to get people who weren't planning to buy your product to pay full price for it, okay? And the feeblest form of marketing is to get people who are going to buy your product anyway to buy it a bit sooner at a discount, okay? And I think a large amount of digital marketing is heavily focused on the latter rather than on the former. There's an old joke about this, by the way. A pizza restaurant gives all their waiters 20% off vouchers and tells them to go and hand these out in the streets to drive traffic to the pizza restaurant. And at the end of the day, they get the people back in and they look at the conversion rate that each has achieved. And it's sort of 20%, 25%, 30%, 10%, etc. And then the final guy comes up, 100% conversion. Everybody he's given the voucher to has actually converted into a customer of the pizza shop. And they go, God, you're some sort of sales genius. And he goes, actually, not really. He said, I just waited until there was a queue outside the store and I gave everybody 20% off. Okay? Very often the metrics we're using are dangerously bad. Secondly, purely anecdotally and from my own experience, an advertising system which is working at the collective level, at the level of an overall system, as opposed to an individual brand's interest, would create a world in which, roughly speaking, the ads I'm exposed to are in some way proportionate to where the contents of my wallet go. I don't see that at all. I see, for example, people who sell online only and direct, or advertisers in very, very high margin products, seem to follow me around the web for months, whereas I never see a single ad from Procter & Gamble or Unilever, okay? On whose products I must spend, 100 quid a month or so. Okay, so the products which I see advertised are insanely disproportionate in the emphasis given to high margin products which are sold directly, not through intermediaries, and where the sales are therefore attributable, where things sold through intermediaries, which are lower margin, more frequently bought products, you barely see at all, okay? So there is a whole world of what I'm exposed to in advertising, where in the world of press and television, there was some sort of commensurability between what I saw and what I bought. And here I have a world where if I go and buy anything particularly weird, because the purchase of this particular category is so unusual, you will be absolutely blitzed with advertisements for it. Whereas if you buy something comparatively normal, okay, because this marks you out much less as an exciting and rare prospect, you'll see advertising for it all the bloody time. But here's the weirdest thing of all, okay, and it only occurred to me a couple of days ago. When there are two parts to digital marketing, there's the targeting of it and there's the digital delivery, okay? And independently, they both look very attractive because the targeting means you only reach the people who you need to reach, in theory, okay? You can narrow down your targeting very precisely so that everybody you're talking to is effectively a reliable prospect for what you have to sell. That's good. Okay. And there's a second thing, which is that when you reach those people, you reach them very, very cheaply indeed. Actually, in combination, those two things are done. The point of direct marketing was to narrow down your target audience to such a small number of people that you could afford to do a very high-impact communication to them. Generally, I believe in the Darwinian theory of costly signaling, and that consumers perceive through the cost of reaching them, the cost of communication, some measure of both the import and the exclusivity of the message, okay? Maybe somebody once said, they said there are only two ways of selling a product. Basically, it all comes down to everybody buys this, so it must be pretty good, or very few people buy this, so it must be pretty good, okay? There's what you might call French luxury goods, and there's Coca-Cola, okay? Now, television was very good at social imprinting, at creating the idea that products were socially normalized and that, yes, everybody else thinks about this product the same way you do. Direct mail, for example, was very good at selling American Express Platinum cards and things which very few people had. Quite frankly, the American Express card is not for everyone. Now, when direct marketing reached its apotheosis of targeting, what you would then do is you would respond to the precision of your targeting by actually communicating in a very expensive way. Now, in the case of, for example, Jaguar, it was actually Range Rover back in the day, okay? They knew so well who their prospects were for buying a car, they offered them a kind of 4-day test drive where, provided you could provide your own insurance, you could take a Range Rover away for 4 days and try it out. It sold an insane number of cars. And you could afford to do that precisely because your targeting was good, okay? At the other extreme, if you don't know who your prospects are, and in many cases, of course, your prospects will always be impossible to identify, and many, many people are kind of repertoire buyers anyway, and a large part of advertising is probabilistic. In other words, you don't do it because you know, you do it to maximize your surface area exposure to upside opportunity by being famous, okay? So that, rather than trying to know who your customers know who you are and will therefore come to you if they need you, okay? Perfectly reasonable way of doing things. Okay? TV is really, really good at that. What you have here is actually a stupid combination where you narrow down very precisely who you're talking to and then reach them in the lowest impact, lowest conversion form of communication there is. Now, I know a lot of people don't like direct mail, but I've had 100% response rate from direct mail in the past once or twice. It's not uncommon to get 5, 6, 7% response rate if you get your targeting absolutely right, because it's a high impact, high cost, patently a form of communication where you're only communicating to a select group of people and you make them feel special, okay? That's the point of targeting. It's to be able to afford to actually communicate to people, whether by telephone or by post, in a way that says, offers them something that you can only offer to a small number of people. And yet what we've combined is an absurd thing, which is a high level of focus on targeting combined with an unbelievably low conversion form of communication. And they actually cancel each other out. So if anybody else thinks that's a sane observation, it just strikes me as very, very weird, okay? If you really know you've only got 7 customers in the world, it's like being a car dealer, okay? Now, if you go into a car dealership, they will know that you are in the 1% of people, or 0.5% of people, who are highly likely to buy that brand of car just by dint of walking into the dealership. Trust me, they will not treat you with complete indifference. They'll go, yeah, there's some cars for sale, okay? The combination of taking an exactly defined target audience and then reaching them in what you might call the most offhand and perhaps least impactful medium there is, whether it be email or banners, seems to me, basically, it's logical in targeting terms, it's logical in communication terms. Alas, in combination, the two cancel each other out. So there you go. Thank you.